This is Subjectively Correct Sports, the only podcast in at least this region of the known universe. Guessing, I don't know. At least this part of the galaxy. The only sports podcast in the state of Texas. The only one happening in my home office right now, featuring a couple of guys talking about sports, namely me, Anthony, and you, David. Hey, David.
Anthony, how you doing?
Pretty good. You can find the show. Obviously, you found it, so congratulations. Well done. But tell your friends you can find the show on iTunes, Google Play, and YouTube. Please subscribe, leave a 5-star review. You can leave a 4-star review on those platforms that are 4 out of 4. But if it has the option to go up to 5, go to 5. If it has the option to go up to 10, do 10. What I'm trying to say is give us the highest rating possible. Just because we have very low self-esteem. And please check out our website. There's nothing there, but it's a good way to send a link to your friend if they're, not technically savvy. Everything's there for them to just click on, and if they have a smartphone, it'll automatically take them to the App Store or whatever, their podcast app, to download the show.
Did you mean technologically savvy?
What did I say?
Technically savvy.
Technologically savvy. Thanks, David. You're very word savvy. Appreciate it.
I am a wordsmith, according to a friend. He called me a word doctor at first, and I was like, that's a little too much credit. There are actual word doctors who have doctorates in words. I'm not one of those, but I would consider myself having a certificate in words. I'm a wordsmith.
You can go to that website at www.subjectivelycorrect.com.
You still haven't gotten to that?
Twitter, @subcorrect. You can follow me, @AGMontague, David, @DPHenderson1515. And email the show. Thank you for our listener who emailed the show. David happens to disagree with everything you say, but it's subjectively...
You know who you are. You know who you are.
Subjectivelycorrect@gmail.com. How was your week, David?
I had a great week. Last week was super fun. Having a whole week off of school, taking that break, spending a lot of time with my kids. It was awesome. I spent some time with you too, so that was, but it was really nice to spend.
It's been awesome.
Never. I mean, it always sucks going back to work, but Thanksgiving was awesome, and
Wow.
The end of my explanation of that Thanksgiving is awesome.
What I loved is that you became the 45-year-old uncle who, after eating our Thanksgiving dinner, just fell right to sleep on the couch while there was like 6 or 7 kids running around, lots of noise, the cats jumping around.
There were guests. We had guests.
We had company, and you just fell right to sleep on the couch.
No,
perfect.
So that everyone understands, I am not 45. And as I was laying down on the couch, as I walked into the other room, thinking I'm gonna lay down for a minute, that thought crossed my mind. I thought, I'm the crazy uncle who falls asleep on the couch after Thanksgiving. That's what I've become. And you know what I did after having that thought? I laid down on the couch and I took a nap.
You ceased to have any more thoughts for about an hour.
I ran out of cares to give. I did.
It was a great week. Thanksgiving week's always a fun week. I didn't get all week off like you did, but just the few days off I had were awesome. We got some ping pong in. That was nice. And also got to watch a fair bit of sports. So I'm excited to talk about that this week. I think the most action right now is happening in college football just because we're getting so close to the end of the season.
And the playoff is starting to take form.
Yeah.
The second, third, and fourth seeds are starting to take form.
Yeah, there's no question about who the number 1 seed is, right? And I guess we can jump right into that. So there's really 6 teams left in college football who have a shot at making the playoff. The 1 seed is going to Alabama. There's a very slim chance that they lose the SEC title game to Georgia. If they did, they would still be in the college playoff.
I think when you say those words, when you say they might lose the SEC championship game, our fans of Alabama, all they hear is...
Let's talk about this Alabama team for a minute. I think they are the most dominant college football team in the modern era. I'm having trouble thinking of maybe one of like the mid-late 90s Nebraska teams, maybe.
There were some Miami teams that were pretty dominant.
There were some Miami teams that were really good, but think about this. Here's a stat for you to chew on. They have 4 wins this season over top 25 ranked teams. It'll be 5 if they win next week against Georgia. It could end up being 7 if they win the college football playoff and go undefeated. They win next week and then win the college football playoff. But not only are they winning against high-ranked teams, they're destroying high-ranked teams. They have not won a game by less than 22 points this season.
So their smallest margin of victory, is 22 points?
Yeah, their closest game was against Texas A&M, and they won 45-23.
The Texas A&M who just beat the 7th-ranked LSU Tigers.
Yeah,
Go Tigers.
That just put up 74 points on the Tigers. Granted, that was in a crazy game. We'll get to that in a minute. And yeah, so that game. Well, we'll get to that in a minute. But Alabama, like I said, they beat 4 top 25 ranked teams. Clemson, sitting second right now in the rankings, they've beaten 1. They don't have very many strong wins on their schedule. Next week they play Pittsburgh. There's no other team currently in contention that has as many high caliber wins as Alabama. So you can't. It's not just the fact that it's Alabama and they have really high name recognition and they've been so successful for so long. So you think the voters are giving them a nudge for that? No, it's the fact that they really are the best team and they're beating every other good team they play by no less than 3 touchdowns. It's crazy.
Now I can't remember a team doing that. The fact that they're not just beating these top-ranked teams, but putting the beat down on all of them. I mean, we talked a little bit before the beginning of the season about Tua Tagovailoa not winning the Heisman because he doesn't play in the fourth quarter ever.
Yeah. He far and away transforms this team. They've been good for however long Saban's been there. It feels like a decade now. Is it that long? I don't know. But what they've never had is a 5-star quarterback. I mean, maybe they've actually had like a 5-star recruit at quarterback, but they've never had one who's performed like that in college.
Never a Heisman candidate type quarterback. Yeah. I mean, when's the last time an Alabama player was talked about for the Heisman? Most of the time their best players are defensive players or running backs or something like that. It's never a quarterback, and it's usually quarterbacks that get talked about for the Heisman these days. We should just change it to the quarterback award.
Yeah.
I mean, when's the last time? I'll look that up real quick, but I don't know the last time a non-quarterback won the Heisman.
Did Saquon Barkley win it?
If I would have known that, I would have. I don't know. I'm looking at it right now.
No, I'm trying to. I think he may have won it last year. But the other teams in contention, we said Clemson. They're essentially a shoo-in at this point. They have to win their ACC title game against Pittsburgh next this
Was that
coming
the Rock?
weekend. What?
Was The Rock on this list? No way. Oh, that's Eddie George. He just was wearing glasses and I was scrolling quickly, and they're both bald.
The Rock most definitely has not won a Heisman.
Quarterback. Derrick Henry was the last one in 2015. That's my bad. Quarterback, running back, running back, running back. Ooh, 2 in a row. A cornerback / punt returner. Oh, the Charles Woodson.
Woodson.
Okay. So basically, it's a quarterback or running back award.
Yeah,
or a Charles Woodson award.
Yeah, you have to be pretty stellar at your position, and if you're not a quarterback doing this, I mean, you have to be stellar as a quarterback too, but you have to probably break some records, or also probably have to be like on a number 1 ranked team like Charles Woodson was.
And the fact that he returned punts, I think, helps him too. So he was putting up those spectacular plays and returning punts, and that'll get you a ton of attention because you're scoring points for your team and stuff like that. I don't think a straight corner would ever win the Heisman unless he ran back 18 interceptions for touchdowns. You know what I mean? Yeah,
the most recent defensive player that garnered a lot of attention, I guess, and was a Heisman candidate was Manti Te'o. And that was just, I mean, the Notre Dame defense that year was awesome up until the playoff at least. And he led that defense. So like I said, Clemson, if they lose, they're probably still in the college playoff. But I mean, I don't think they're going to lose. It's Notre Dame, they're just chilling at home. They don't have a title game, so they're in regardless of what happens this weekend. And the next 3 teams all have a shot at this 4 seed. You've got Georgia playing Alabama. If they win the SEC title game, they're in. They'd have the same record as Alabama, and they would have beaten them head-to-head.
And Alabama would still be ranked number 1.
Yeah,
I really feel that way. I really do.
Yeah, I think if Clemson stays undefeated and Notre Dame stay undefeated, they probably take the 1 and 2 spots, but it should be Alabama. Georgia, they win, they're in. If they lose, they would also need Oklahoma and Ohio State to lose to be in. Oklahoma plays Texas, who is their only loss of the season. Right, so they earlier in the season, I think like their 4th game or something like that, Oklahoma lost to Texas, which seemed like a bad loss at the time because Texas has not been great the past few years, but they ended up ranked. I think this week they're about maybe 14 or something like that. So it doesn't look so bad now, and they get a chance to avenge their loss. They win, they're in. If Georgia loses, right? So Oklahoma needs some help from Georgia. And then Ohio State needs some help from Georgia and Oklahoma. They need to beat Northwestern, which they probably will. Northwestern's, ranked somewhere in the 20s, so it's not a gimme, but chances are they'll beat them. Now, none of this is like mechanical, so it all comes down. It all comes down to the voters. I think what I'm saying is like this is what's most likely to happen if these scenarios played out. But it really does come down to the voters. So there is the chance that someone that's currently in the top 4 doesn't make it, even if they won. I don't think that would happen. Or a chance that Ohio State, if they win and Georgia and Oklahoma both lose, somehow doesn't get in. That could be. Because of the drama from Ohio State earlier in the season with Zach Smith and, taking it out against the team in that way. We'll see. It will be very interesting to talk about if that's what happens. I think what happens is Alabama wins and they're in. Clemson wins and they're in. Notre Dame doesn't have to do anything. They're in. And if I were betting, I'd probably say, if I'm saying Alabama wins, I'm saying Georgia loses and they're out. And I probably say Oklahoma wins and they're in. Dark horse, Ohio State. We'll see.
Can we talk about LSU now?
Please do.
All right. So I wasn't paying attention to that game. I had other things going on, and our brother-in-law Matt was at the Utah BYU game. So Utah BYU is a big rivalry game. So he went to that game and he was there repping University of Utah. And well. What are you going to do, right? Is there like legit family contention with that? Because I just like look at it and go, haha, and that's the end of it. But is there legitimate family contention between the BYU alum and the the University of Utah supporters in the family?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't really give it any thought.
Okay.
Maybe.
So I think if I don't give it thought, and if you don't give it thought, and we're the biggest sports guys in the family, I don't think. Well, I don't know. I think Matt and Colt might take exception to.
I don't know if we're the biggest sports fans in the family, but I know for a fact that we are not the most loyal to any of those teams, right?
Yeah, like when BYU is good, I'm like, okay, cool. My dad went there. That's nice. And when Utah's good, I'm like, I don't care. Yeah. But when BYU's bad, I'm like, okay, that feels normal now.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't know. I like you. I don't feel attached to either team at all.
Yeah, even though I like sports, in my entire time in college, I went to half of a football game. Like one half. I left at halftime. Because the seats were too hard.
So your discomfort drove you away from the game?
Yeah. I'd rather just watch it at home.
I do like a comfy tushy while I'm watching football. While I'm watching other guys sacrifice their necks and their backs, I like to have a soft, comfy tushy.
All right, so tell us about this LSU game.
I actually have buns of steel. I've never had a soft tushy. I used to do a lot of like squats and like leg curls and stuff like that, so I had that nice firm tushy. But I like to have my nice firm tushy on a nice soft cushion. See what I'm saying?
Okay.
So my firm tushy is cozy on a comfy place.
Okay. Well,
what I'm trying to say is I have a nice firm tushy. My family right now is thinking you don't have one at all.
Yeah.
That's the joke in the family. It's like right from back to hamstrings. My joke in high school was my coaches chewed it off. Get it? Because the coaches chew your butt out, stuff like that. You've heard that phrase before?
Yep.
Yeah. So my joke was, if this keeps happening, I'm just going to slide right off of chairs because I don't have a butt to sit on.
You heard about the woman who backed up into a propeller. Disaster. So,
I'll be good in a second. Sorry. I'll be good in a second. Okay. That's one of those where I knew it was coming,
yeah,
but I couldn't stop myself from laughing. Okay. LSU and Texas A&M played a crazy game that went into 7 overtimes. And like I said, I wasn't watching it. I watched the highlights the next day, but I couldn't believe the back and forth. One of my favorite parts of this game is that Ed Orgeron, coach of LSU, got a Gatorade shower, not a Gatorade bath, but got a Gatorade shower. Anthony tried to call it a bath. It's not. It's not a bath. He's not like laying down in the Gatorade. It's thrown on top of him like a shower.
All I'm saying is we should probably consider taking Gatorade baths. I mean, the idea of being able to lay in cool Gatorade, tilt your head to the side, take a swig, get refreshed.
Oh, gross. So gross. If you're going to do that, you might as well get like a really long swirly straw and just have it right next to you.
I don't see a problem with that.
Oh, I do. I see a lot of problems with that. All of them have to do with your health, right? All of them have to do with your health. And my sanity. Oh, gross. But anyway, yes, Gatorade shower. So Ed Orgeron gets a Gatorade shower when his team thought they had the game wrapped up, and then Texas A&M ties up the game and they end up going to overtime. So,
is there a worse feeling than being wet and cold on the sideline after you think you had won?
We're talking about Ed Orgeron. Ed Orgeron like barely felt it. Like the ice and with like down his shirt and stuff, and he was like, "Go Tigers!" He didn't even notice.
His body temperature probably runs at like 115 degrees.
That's right. The ice melted upon contact, and everything was cool. Everything was just like, "We're good, go Tigers!" And he thought he had to win, and then they didn't. They tied it up, and then like 7 overtimes later, he's completely dry. He had enough time to completely dry off.
Did he dry?
Yes, it was completely dry. So he gets a Gatorade shower, and usually the Gatorade shower, and then you go to the interviews, your hair's all wet and stuff like that. By the end of the game, he was completely dry. He said, "I don't even take a shower. I already got that Gatorade shower. I don't need a shower. Go Tigers."
No, you're not doing a good enough impression because I can understand what you're saying.
Oh, well, I don't. Okay. I don't have no shower. Go Tigers.
That was perfect.
Thank you.
Before we leave college football, I think we do need to shout out Mackenzie Milton, quarterback of University of Central Florida. Unfortunately, he had a season-ending injury, maybe career-ending injury last weekend. What he did in the previous 2 years,
and not full season because of this injury.
Yeah, maybe unmatched in college football. I haven't looked, to compare to what other quarterbacks have done, but he led his team to a 23-0 record starting at the beginning of the 2017 season to now. 23-0, 6,700 yards on the dot, 62 touchdowns to only 15 interceptions. Hard to play much better than that. He's 5'11", like 180 pounds. Like he's maximized his skills. And he was the heart and soul of this UCF team. I would like for them to win so they could keep the undefeated streak going. Like I said, they're at 23 wins in a row. There's not really a chance to get into the college football playoff, but it would still be cool to see that streak going. He's probably not coming back next season. He has to have reconstructive knee surgery, and you hope for the best for him. Hopefully, he can continue his career in football, whether it be playing or coaching or some other aspect of the game, if that's what he wants to do. But it's tough. I think this leads to a bigger discussion of if I were to get injured at my job, my company would take care of me for a time, right? Mackenzie Milton hasn't made $1 yet doing this. He's brought in millions probably to this university. But what he's received in compensation has been his scholarship, which that's great. But I don't think it's not commensurate with what he's given the university, especially given this injury.
No, what he's produced will never ever match what he's been given by that university, ever. And he's literally given his body and maybe his career and his future financial capabilities, like earning capabilities, to this university, and he's not going to get a dime from them, and it's unfortunate. But I think I have a solution. He should get a gazelle placenta and just wrap his tendons in a gazelle placenta, and I think in just a few months he'll be fine.
Gazelle placenta.
Yeah, we should call Colt. I'm sure he would agree with me.
Okay. So if you're anywhere near Central Florida, find some wildlife, remove the placenta. Obviously, ask for permission first. You don't want any unauthorized placenta removal. And then, attach it to this guy's leg and throw it in the microwave for 30 seconds, see what happens. It's the time of the week, boys and girls. It's David's Hot Take Minute. And go.
No song? No weird, uncomfortable intro?
First I was afraid.
Oh, no.
I was petrified. Kept thinking David wouldn't do his Hot Take Minute by my side. Go.
One of my new favorite things in sports is paying attention to NBA drama. I mean, off the court stuff. For example, apparently Ben Simmons and Blake Griffin both have a thing for Kendall Jenner. Kendall was at a Sixers game this week where she was clearly cheering for Ben Simmons. That night, Balake hit a game-winning 3. May the best man win. Or lose, depending on your feelings about all that is happening there. The baseball offseason is the opposite of the NBA offseason. No one cares about an only bomb. Speaking of baseball, Barry Bonds isn't in the Hall of Fame, and it is one of the dumbest things in sports. He'd be a Hall of Famer if all of his home runs were turned into strikeouts. That's not just me saying that. Someone smarter than me, there aren't many, but someone smarter than me did that math and posted it online. Barry Bonds is more deserving of the Hall of Fame than just about any player in baseball history, and, by the way, he was never disciplined for PED use. Hall of Fames are not there to showcase great people. They are there to showcase the best in the field. We don't kick musicians out of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for bad behavior. It would be a much more exclusive club if they did. Plus, tons of guys in the Baseball Hall of Fame did awful stuff and were bad dudes, but they were great players, and they're in the Hall of Fame. Being a fan sucks. When your team loses, it makes you sad. When your team wins, you had nothing to do with it. I will never understand football fights. Why are dudes punching other dudes in the helmet? It sounds like a great way to injure a hand, right? Is there a more frustrating position in sports than a star wide receiver who plays with a terrible quarterback? Maybe Tom Brady's backup? That dude's gonna play till he's 50, or until Giselle tells him to stop. Speaking of old, I haven't heard from Peyton Manning in a few days. Should we send someone to his home to check on him? Peyton, just worried about you. I'm a huge fan. Huge fan. Baker Mayfield is a fun quarterback. Remember when he planted the OU flag right on top of the Ohio State O at midfield? It reminded me of one of my favorite sports moments of all time, when Terrell Owens stood in the middle of the Dallas Star after a touchdown. I miss those years so much. Speaking of the 49ers, Marquise Goodwin is now one of my favorite players. If you don't know about him, look him up. He's inspiring and he has a ton of talent and potential. I'm rooting for him in more ways than one. And as a tribute to our listener in Japan, a haiku. Haikus are easy, but sometimes they don't make sense. Refrigerator.
Hot Take Minute was not bad. Good job, David. I do agree. Being a fan is pretty lame most of the time. You get so wrapped up in your team's day-to-day happenings, and it has nothing to do with you.
Right, and think about the only fans who end happy are like one team per season, per sport, right? So this year, only Boston Red Sox fans are happy baseball fans because every other team ended their season with basically a loss, either not making the playoffs or literally their last game was a loss in the playoffs.
Yeah. Also, I agree with your sentiment. I don't understand football fights either. It's basically an hour of authorized fighting.
Right?
Do you need to take it into off the clock?
Right, and at least hockey players have it right. You try to get the helmet off the dude and their faces are exposed, so you're going for the face, right? Or they give them some stomach punches right before that, and they take the gloves off when they want to get real serious. But football players leave all their protective padding on and then try to attack the person in the one object that is the hardest on that person. I have never seen a body shot thrown in a football fight, which is the obvious play to throw a punch in a football fight, right? Mm. The only place that's not extremely padded.
Yeah, CTE.
What about CTE?
That's why they're not going for body shots.
Because they all have CTE?
They all have CTE.
Oh, okay, I thought they were afraid to cause CTE, and I was like, oh, then they shouldn't be playing football.
Yeah. Mm. Speaking of the NFL.
Yeah, good segue.
Right.
Good segue.
We just segued
over there like Paul Blart.
That's good. Yeah. So I watched Monday Night Football this week.
Paul Blart.
Not something I do every week, but I watched because I had a stake in the game. I needed 3 points.
Oh,
I needed 3 points to win my fantasy.
I thought fantasy football was dumb.
Oh, it is dumb. It's super dumb. Right. But it got me to watch Texans Titans on Monday Night Football, and I needed 3 points, and all I had left was the Houston kicker. Can't even remember his name, but I had him.
On the back of his jersey it says Texans kicker.
I started calling him Fairbrain because the letters in his name kind of resembled that.
Okay, now I have to look it up. Texans kicker.
Where does it say?
How about Fairbairn?
Fairbairn. Yeah.
Fairbairn.
Yeah, I called him Fairbairn. He came through. I think he had 2 field goals.
That's a mean name to say if you're struggling with your R's.
Yeah.
Fairbairn. I really hope he didn't have that particular trouble growing up. Oh, that'd be rough.
So yeah, he came through. 2 field goals, 3 extra points, something like that. Got me the win. So thanks, Fairbairn. But it also gave us some more exposure to the Texans, who are sneaky good this year. Are
they a sneaky good golfer of the week?
They're the Houston Texans. Congratulations, you're the sneaky good golfer of the week. Actually, Phil Mickelson was the sneaky good golfer of the week, beating Tiger Woods in their pay-per-view playoff. $9 million.
That was released online for free by accident. Did you hear about that?
No.
Yeah. So apparently there was some mishap or something, and people, while the match was going on, 18-hole matches last forever, right?
Yeah.
And so while it was going on, enough people took to social media saying, "Oh, I'm on this app watching for free. I didn't pay for it."
Oh no.
And so all the people that did pay for it are like, "What the heck? Like, I could have just watched it for free, but I paid for it." So now, like, they're issuing refunds and all this stuff. But apparently it was such a resounding success that they're going to turn this into like a series, like, quote, The Match.
Was it successful? Oh, wow.
I don't know. Well, I guess the right people made the right amount of money.
Yeah.
And so they're going to keep doing it. Maybe like Sergio Garcia versus, I don't know, the Yips. I don't know what they're going to do next.
So I think...
that was a deep dive into a golf joke, too. That was, like, our one listener got it, and I really hope it's our listener in Japan.
So... I think what happened with the Tiger Phil deal is that Tiger lost on purpose so that they could do this again next year. So because like there's no way he actually should have lost that. I mean, I know Tiger's not the Tiger of old, but he's much better than Phil Mickelson is right now. And
lefty.
Yeah, so I think he was paid under the table. I think
he was. He got some of the pay-per-view that no one needed to actually pay.
Yeah,
the free pay-per-view match.
So I'd like to. I think I'd like to see this concept extended into other sports. I'd like to see
like one-on-ones, televised pay-per-view one-on-ones.
Yeah, I'd like to see some Giannis Antetokounmpo and KD one-on-one. Or
I have Giannis on that.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, or other. I don't know. That can make soccer exciting for me. You get. I guess you probably need like at least 2 or 3 players for that.
Yeah,
but just like smaller events, right?
So how about like one-on-ones in baseball, where like the best overall players pitch against each other and hit against each other?
Okay. And like you'd have one person in the field?
No. I just mean you'd have to have like rate it somehow, like like best hit balls, like home runs count for points or whatever, strikeouts count for like taking away points and stuff like that. But I don't really know if this works for any sport really other than golf or like racing events.
Yeah, tennis.
That makes sense. Tennis, darts. We missed a huge opportunity. This reminds me, we missed a huge opportunity last week. There was a guy who threw a perfect dart round where every dart he threw, it's like the minimum number of darts you can do, and I think it's 9. So he hit like what is it, like 6 triple 20s, and then he got the remainder to get it to the 351 or whatever it is.
301?
301 to end a dart match, whatever it is. And it was really cool to see that. Also, another dart player was frustrated at a dart player who farted during a match, but did not claim it. And so this is a different match. This isn't the perfect round match, but one dart player...
Okay, so the dart player 1 accuses dart player 2...
of farting, yes.
Okay.
Dart player 2...
The dart fart.
the dart farter.
Okay.
It's like a serial killer name, the Dart Farter. Yeah. Right? Like Jack the Ripper. It did take place in England.
Jack the Ripper.
Works on so many levels. So this dart player, right? Dart player number 2, the Dart Farter. His defense was, I've farted during matches before, and I've always taken credit for it. That was his defense. So
did he take personal offense that this guy would be accusing him?
Not accusing him of farting, but accusing him of lying about farting. That was his thing. He was like,
of a dishonorable fart.
Yes, exactly. Like when I fart during my matches, I let everyone know.
Wow.
I let everyone know that I farted. So he was like, you impugn my honor, sir. I claim them all.
Good day.
But imagine everything we just said, but in delightful British accents, and then you have the story down perfect.
Higgledy-piggledy.
Higgledy-piggledy fart.
Oh, so we're 8 minutes into NFL talk, and I think we've covered. We've covered mostly everything from the week.
You know who else throws darts?
Oh, nice.
So I'm looking through my notes. I'm trying to find a good quarterback here for just a second. Okay, you know who else throws darts? The quarterbacks for the Saints, Rams, and Chiefs.
Oh yeah. Well, okay. So there's.
You know who farts?
Everyone else?
Everyone else in the league, apparently. I don't know. No. There are some. What's surprising me about the league this year is, and I'm giving you most of the credit for pointing this out, Anthony. We have 3 teams that we know for sure are really good teams.
Yeah.
And then we talk about bubble teams when we get into the playoffs, and you've labeled these other teams bubble good teams. Like
they're
teams,
bubble good.
Yeah, like we know they're a decent team at least, but are they really in this class with the Rams, Patriots, Chiefs of being like an actual? We know for sure these are great teams, and why don't you talk more about that and what those teams are and why you think they're like the bubble good teams?
Yeah. Okay. So my bubble good teams 1 through 5. So we already said Saints, Rams, Chiefs. Obvious 1 through 3. Put them in whatever order you want. Bubble good. Number 1, the Patriots. Okay. We say this a lot about the Patriots, that they don't look as good as they did last year, and then they end up in the Super Bowl, right?
But they did lose to the Titans,
yes,
who just got stomped by the Texans. And I know the transitive property doesn't always work in sports. It doesn't.
Yeah.
And I understand that because matchups and schedules, injuries, whatever. But still, they lost to a team that got crushed by the Texans, who is another one of our bubble good teams, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and we'll see. They do have some concerning losses. It's their away record that concerns me. They're 5-0 at home. They're 3-3 on the road, and they will, in all likelihood, in the playoffs, have to go on the road. So we'll see if the Belichick Brady magic continues. Number
Gronk
2
is still hurt, right?
He's always hurt. I don't
know.
He
is. But I think a lot of it hinges on him, and not just if he can come back, but if he comes back healthy, if he comes back able to actually contribute. And so I would keep listing them as a bubble good team until Gronk comes back healthy.
Yeah, and they do have a pretty winnable schedule the rest of the season. They're
in the AFC East.
They're hosting the Vikings. They're at the Dolphins. They're at the Steelers. That's always a dicey game for them and the Steelers. They're hosting the Bills, hosting the Jets. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them end up 12-4.
Bills win. Jets win. Dolphins win. Their division is garbage. I can't imagine them losing any more division games.
Yeah, so if they do hang on and go 12-4, they maybe end up as the 2nd seed. It's going to depend on what the Chargers do. Speaking of the Chargers, they're my number 2 bubble good team. But the Chargers have a much tougher road the rest of the season. So in years past, we would get excited about the Chargers, and then they'd kind of tail off at the end. Old Phil Rivers, my good friend Phil.
I think you have to say old Phil Rivers. Old Phil Rivers sounds like a guy you'd meet on the Oregon Trail that would like help you trap some beavers, make a hat so you could survive the winter.
Peaches. Old Phil Rivers.
Cinnamon and gravy.
So they have a tough schedule. They've got
imagine Philip Rivers in a coonskin hat. The little tails by his head.
Oh, I'm sure you could Google Philip Rivers coonskin hat and you would find a picture.
Don't make me Google.
So they're at Pittsburgh, hosting Cincinnati. That's a win. At Kansas City, hosting Baltimore. At Denver. Of those 5 games left, they could...
Sorry, no coonskin hat, but they do have him a little pirate hat, a little pirate eye patch. Sorry,
there's a lot of good Phil Rivers images on Google. Yeah. So legitimately, out of those 5 games we mentioned, they could lose 4. I think the game against Cincinnati is the only gimme. And so they could end up, 9-7, which would not get them hosting a game because they're in the same division as the Chiefs. So the Chiefs are most likely going to win the division. So either way, they're starting off on the road. We'll see. We'll see how they do. I'm not as optimistic I'm not as high on the Chargers as some other people are, just because of how many tough games they have left on their schedule.
We also have a Phillip Rivers in a sailor's hat and a pipe a la Popeye, and it is wonderful.
He may have as strong forearms as Popeye. He can sling it. The Bears, they're my number 3 bubble team. They're maybe the surprise of the season for me. Mitch Trubisky. I honestly did not know of the guy before this season. And he's doing. Even though he was out last week, they still won against the Lions on Thanksgiving. So kudos to whoever was the backup and kept them in the game. But the Bears, surprisingly, 8-3. They've got a 1-game lead over the Vikings in their division. No, sorry, they've got however many. They're 8-3. Vikings are 6-4-1. So.
I've done the research, and unfortunately, there are no pictures on the internet of Phillip Rivers wearing a coonskin hat. And the magic of the Phil Rivers photos ran out pretty quickly. So don't waste your time with the Phil Rivers funny pictures. There's 1 or 2 that'll delight you, and then you'll be disappointed for the rest of time.
We've still got time this season. 1 may surface.
I don't have my hopes up.
My number 4, good bubble good team. Bubble good, Bubba Gump.
That's what I thought of. As soon as you did that one.
The Steelers, I don't know if they're good. They have some very troubling losses.
Running backs.
They tied the Browns earlier this season.
Quarterbacks.
They don't play well on the road.
Left tackles.
If they win out, or at least win the majority of the games, they'll probably win their division.
Strong safeties.
As has been the case for the last decade or so.
Defensive coordinators.
The Steelers and the Ravens are battling it out for lead of the AFC North. So
medical trainers.
And then the Texans, we previously mentioned the Texans. They're my number 5 good bubble team.
Weight trainers.
Bubble good. Am I saying bubble good or good bubble? I'm saying bubble good. They're my bubble good team number 5.
It doesn't matter what you say. I'm going to hear Bubba Gump every time you say that now.
Coconut shrimp. So NFL... Yeah, there's a few really good teams at the top, and then there's a host of teams really vying for the playoffs, and I don't know. I don't feel like any of those bubble good teams, except for maybe the Patriots, just because they've done it so many times.
Right. It's hard to bet against the Patriots. It's like betting against LeBron to make the playoffs. Until he doesn't do it, I'm not going to bet against him.
Like if you gave me the Saints, Rams, and Chiefs versus the field, I would take the Saints, Rams, and Chiefs, and the only one I'd be worried about is that the Patriots isn't in that grouping as well. So I'm excited for the next 5 weeks. This is when the NFL season gets super exciting.
And just a note on all this, like the records are not the best indication of what's a good team.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, yes, the Patriots are 8-3, and they look like they're having a great season, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're one of the best teams in the league. Right?
Yeah.
So
just like in baseball, you can look at point differential. I think that's a pretty good predictor in football as well. You look in the AFC, we had one team that we mentioned in our 3. That was the Kansas City Chiefs, right? Our 3 definitely good teams. Kansas City Chiefs have positive 110 point differential. The next best are the Chargers
in the same division,
plus 88. After that, you go to the Ravens, and then the Steelers, then the Patriots, and the Houston Texans have the lowest of the teams we mentioned at plus 51.
And to give you an idea of what I'm talking about, the Colts are 6-5 this year, but they have a plus 52 point differential. So their point differential is better than the 8-3 Texans. So someone liked to say, why don't you bet on, I heard the story, someone asked a famous gambler, why don't you bet on football? And he said, because the ball isn't round. You never know which way it's going to bounce. And that was a metaphor not just for what the ball does, but the games, you never know which way they're going to go. I mean, a bounce goes one way or the other, and the Colts could be 10-6 at the end of the year instead of 6-10 or whatever they're going to end up with. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You look at something like a division like the NFC East where there are no good teams. I mean, the Cowboys and the Redskins are the only teams with. They're both at 6-5.
And the only reason we're talking about the Cowboys as being a good team right now is because they have won lately.
Yeah,
that's really the only reason.
Yeah, they won 3 in a row. So I mean, at one point in the season, they were 3-5. Right. Now they're 6-5. They're the only team with a positive point differential in their division, and it's only positive plus 21. But you look at the Bears, you look at the Rams, and you look at the Saints are good to bubble good teams, right? The Saints clearly the best team in the NFL. Well, I shouldn't say clearly.
The highest point differential in the NFL.
They definitely have the highest point differential. And if you're playing indoors, there's no one you'd rather have than the New Orleans Saints. Plus 153. That's crazy. Rams, second, plus 107. Bears right behind them, plus 106. So...
and they added Khalil Mack on defense, and he's starting to get comfortable in that defensive system.
Their defense is awesome.
Yeah, and I think... now that Khalil Mack has had a couple weeks to play with them and they're getting the feel for how to play with him and how he's going to play with everyone else, their defense is going to be really good for a long time. And John Gruden is making a grumpy face right now.
So I think and I didn't even look at the point differential, but I think our list of good teams and bubble good teams, it tracks pretty well with point differential. The Texans being really the only outlier there. So we'll see. Excited. But not all exciting stuff in the NFL.
Right, and I'm a big 49ers fan, and so I haven't paid attention for the last couple of years. Nick Mullens, I can use the 2 L's now.
Emphasis on the 2 L's.
Yeah, Nick Mullens came in and gave me some hope, getting a W on his first win. Best quarterback in 49ers history for 45 minutes. And
I tried to warn you.
You did. But I'm not a ride or die with Nick Mullens. But I still ride with Nick Mullens.
Okay.
But their running back Breida had an amazing game. He had over 100 yards, but he only had 14 carries. And when I see that, I think, yeah, you're behind and you're losing. But if your guy is averaging just under like 7 yards a carry, and your the guy throwing the ball for you is Nick Mullens, you might as well ride the hot hand and keep giving the ball to the running back who's averaging good numbers, right?
I think the sign of a good coach is they go back to what's working. Like where NFL coaches get in trouble is they're too creative for their own good, or they're too I don't know, they maybe stick to trends too much instead of what's actually working in the game that they're coaching at that moment.
And Bill Belichick and Nick Saban are great examples of coaches who have adapted, who had a system that worked for a long time, and when they needed to change and adapt, they did.
And not just adapt in any given season, but adapt in any given game.
Yes.
You look at Alabama's second halves.
They were losing to Citadel, for crying out loud.
That's right. They went
Where's Citadel, Anthony? Where is it?
I assume on top of a hill.
I know better where the Citadel of Gondor is than I know where Citadel of Real Life University is.
Yeah. So
that was the Lord of the Rings reference.
I think you're toking it too far.
That was a. Okay, you got the token bad joke out of the way, and let's move on.
Oh wow.
Smeagol, what I did there.
You've got a nasty habit there of bringing in these Lord of the Rings references.
Well, Mordor is less, I always say. Oh, less is Mordor. Dang it! Dang it! Less is Mordor.
So
something about ring around the joke.
I don't know.
Okay, so Reuben Foster is a linebacker for the 49ers, and he's a promising linebacker, and heaven knows the 49ers have had really bad luck at the linebacker position over the last couple of years with awful injuries. Navarro Bowman, and I can't think of the other one right now, but then early retirements, Patrick Willis, and then they had a really good rookie linebacker that decided to quit the game, not like quit a game, but quit the game of football over health concerns, and so the linebacker core has just been destroyed by all sorts of misfortune. And then Reuben Foster gets accused of domestic violence. The girl comes out and says, I was lying. And then the same girl accuses him again this last week. And so he's not convicted, but he's accused a second time of domestic violence from the same girl. The 49ers cut him. They get rid of him. They basically fire him and say, okay, now we really have to cut ties with you. We can't do this anymore. that same week, Washington calls him and signs him.
Like the day after he's released.
It was 2 days.
Right? I think it was 2 days after he'd been arrested.
And what are we doing? Like, I don't understand. So this just goes to what we talked about during the baseball season, where it doesn't matter what you have done. If you can bring the team wins, if these GMs, head coaches, and presidents of these teams see in you a winner and something that will bring them more wins and more money, they will hire you, almost regardless of your past.
Yeah, and I don't even get like the business decision of this though, because he's suspended. Like he can't play right now while the NFL's investigating. So he may not even play this season. And the Redskins, what are they getting from this? What I don't understand it.
There are 53 roster spots, and your roster spot is being taken by an accused domestic abuser who cannot play for you. Yeah. I mean, I know a guy who was good enough to play in the NFL, who didn't get his chance, who could fill that roster spot for you. You know what I mean? At least he could be on your practice squad.
Colin Kaepernick?
No, I don't know him personally.
Oh.
That's not what I was talking about.
Oh.
I wasn't even going there. You brought it up.
Oh.
That's usually my bag, but you brought it up this time.
Mm-hmm. It was the token Kaepernick reference.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I'm third time's not the charm with the token joke. We are habitually bad at this.
Hey, I already used Hobbit.
But I did it better.
So, David, is Aaron Rodgers good?
Yeah, he's really good. Did you know he's hurt?
Is he hurt?
His leg's jacked up.
Okay. Why is he playing?
I don't know.
Who else is going to play?
Yeah.
He's the only thing keeping Mike McCarthy employed, and if I were him, I would play poorly to get Mike McCarthy fired. Right? I think the only hope of like Aaron Rodgers winning more Super Bowls is for Mike McCarthy to not be his head coach.
But if you were the president of the Packers, which I guess is the people who have bought into the company, if you were running the Packers, they're a publicly traded football team, which is weird. Okay. One of my assistant managers at a job I had was actually a part owner of the Packers. And I was like, what do you get from that? It's like, the certificate. And I was like, and? This certificate. And I was like, worth it. Anyway, like a lock of Aaron Rodgers' hair, did it come in the envelope? No, nothing. But anyway, what were we talking about? Football.
Yeah, Mike
McCarthy, sports.
Mm-hmm.
If you were running the Packers, if Aaron Rodgers came to you and said, I don't think Mike McCarthy is the coach for me, and I don't think he's the coach for this team, don't you call him down to your office? Like, wouldn't Aaron Rodgers and Mike McCarthy like pass each other in your doorway so that you could fire him? I don't understand this, and I don't understand why they're sticking with Mike McCarthy for so long.
Yeah, he obviously has dirt on all of the 1,000 owners of the Packers. That's the only thing I can come up with.
Really? Some cheese fell in the dirt? Dirty cheese? I don't know. Adam cut all of this. Believe the Hobbit jokes. Those were good. Well, mine were good. Anthony's were mediocre. It's fun to say. Kind of sounds like tapioca, but with Mordor in it. Mediocre. Should I stop now? As far as I'm concerned, this is our best segment. This can go forever as far as I'm concerned. I am here for the Lord of the Rings puns and the bad football talk. I'm here for that. I think we found my wheelhouse.
I don't know, man. I'm just sour, man.
Longtime listeners may have listeners may have noticed that we forewent the I don't think you liked my use of forewent there.
It was fine. Fine.
Okay. We forewent the news story to open the show. And in lieu of that, we're going to do Fantastic Five headlines now. And we're just going to spend a little bit more time talking about the Fantastic Five headlines. So, Anthony, are your Fantastic Five headlines ready?
Ready.
Go ahead.
Florida man clings for life onto hang glider. David, watch this video. You can just Google Florida man hang glider, Switzerland. So this guy, Chris Gursky, traveling in Switzerland, decides, I want to try hang gliding. And when you do hang gliding, just like skydiving, the first time you go out, you don't just grab a hang glider and run off a cliff. You do it with an expert, a professional, right? You're tethered to that professional, and they basically handle the equipment or handle the dive, and you're there along for the ride as you learn a little bit. One key element of this hang gliding tour was not done properly, and that was the tethering of the expert to the non-expert.
Okay. So if I understand correctly, you're supposed to be attached to the hang glider,
To the
or to the hang glide expert or the hang glide teacher.
Yeah, you should be attached to the teacher.
And what happened here?
He was not attached. So they took off, and he's Chris Gursky is holding on to the hang glider.
I'm sorry. Chris Gursky sounds like the name of a guy on a sitcom. He sounds like the sitcom dad that gets himself into this exact situation.
So they take off. You see in the video, they ascend super quickly, and both the expert and Chris realize very quickly that Chris is not tethered to the expert, and he begins just hanging off the bar that goes across the hang glider, just like hanging in midair, 1,000 feet in the air, or however high up they are. And the video goes on for over 4 minutes. He's hanging there for 4 minutes, using all the grip strength he has, clutching to the bar, clutching to the expert, and
and you can see him slowly falling down lower, like he's grabbing the guy's arm. Now he's grabbing his pant leg, and like, oh.
Yeah, he's and by the end, it's just like his fingertips are all that's left before they finally land, and he actually drops just before they land. Amazingly, he only fractures a wrist. I say only, I'm sure it was very painful, but from being 1,000 feet in the air, potentially falling to your death, to only fracturing your wrist, I think he feels very blessed. Ended up needing surgery in the wrist, and but now he's famous and gets to go on all these news shows and has a really cool story to tell. I did like this quote from the his name's Christian Boppert. He's the director of the Swiss Hang Gliding Association. He said the pilot knew he made a terrible mistake, but afterward he made a good save. Like, I don't really know what he did. It seemed like Chris was hanging on pretty well.
Right. I watched the video. I think the best thing the hang glide instructor, pilot guy.
Yeah.
Why are we calling him a pilot? That seems like a pretty, like, I think of pilots as
pilot,
like,
yeah.
I think of pilots like guys that are in like airplanes and jet fighters and like stuff like that, or boats. I don't know. What else do you pilot that's kind of unexpected? Sounds like something for another time.
Mm-hmm. I think if nothing else, this story teaches us you can take the man out of Florida, but you can't take the Florida out of the man.
Absolutely not. No.
You know,
Florida gonna Florida no matter where Florida be.
When I research for this segment, and I put in my fancy Google machine, funny, weird, strange stories. It's a good 30 to 40% of the stories start with Florida man. Florida man. So, weird stuff happens in Florida.
And Paul Blart segue.
Fantastic. Headline number 2. Florida man reportedly stabbed woman in head with fork over undercooked potato.
Okay, I'm not going to pass any judgment till I hear more about this story.
Very few details in the story I read. I assume this was at a restaurant, but a man by the name of Kenneth Crumpton, age 36, stabbed a woman in the head when he received an undercooked, slightly raw potato. Now, in Kenneth's defense, he denies stabbing the woman, instead insisting that he merely threw the fork at her head, and it glanced her head, right?
Now, I really feel like this is a distinction that will be easy for the police to find out. Like, a glancing blow to the head with a fork is very different from a man stabbing you in the head. And I'm pretty sure the forensics will come back pretty conclusively on this one. So I await the follow-up story.
Also, I'm no criminal defense attorney, but I don't think the best strategy to saying, no, I didn't stab her in the head, I merely threw the fork at her head and it happened to hit her.
I imagine a judge being like, oh, it was a glancing throw, dismissed.
Yeah, I don't think launching a weapon is much different than swinging a weapon. So, not sure the greatest defense there, but we are in Florida, so who knows?
Florida man.
Canadian scientist names beetle after Jose Bautista.
You made it, Jose. You made it.
Finally.
All of your aspirations and all of your hopes and dreams have now come true. There's a beetle named after you. I would call it the Bat Flip Beetle as a nickname. That's what I would do. Because that bat flip is one of my favorite moments in sports. It created that big bat flip debate, and I was like, the more bat flips, the better.
Yeah, well, the scientist who got to name the beetle actually cited that as the reason.
Yeah!
Yeah, so he said it was talking about the bat flip. It was one of the moments in Toronto baseball sort of lore where he hits the big home run, and I thought, what a great way to kind of recognize his contributions to Blue Jay baseball and to Canadian baseball really as a whole. So entomologist Bob Anderson of the Canadian Museum of Nature was able to name this beetle, newly discovered species, and he named it Sicoderus bautistae. What's also cool is the beetle is from Bautista's native Dominican Republic.
Oh, cool. So
yeah,
it all ties together nicely.
All ties together nicely. Anderson, funnily enough, much like our friend from the last show who has set like 100 Guinness World Records, this entomologist Bob Anderson, he's named over 120 weevils over his career.
Calm down, Weevil guy. We've already given away all the trips. We've already given away all the luggage. We've already given away all the free product. We have no more Weevil swag to give to you. To slow down, you've met your quota. Okay, Weevil guy.
Yeah, and I think the last thing we need to know in 2018 is that more weevils still exist, like more species of weevil are out there.
Well, weevils wobble, but we'll always find more.
We will carry on. Man, 35, reportedly marries computer hologram. So, congratulations, man.
Are you congratulating me or the guy who married the nothing?
I'm congratulating you because you actually married a human.
Nah, I feel pretty good about that. Hey, congratulations to you too. Did you marry a person?
Yes, I married a human being, a Homo sapien.
Cool.
Yeah.
So this is confusing because do holograms exist? Like legit holograms? Because I read a story a little while ago that BYU, who doesn't have a good football team, but apparently has a pretty good science and research program, were actually developing 3D holograms where they would take two lasers and they would trap a particle in the middle of space and manipulate that particle with lasers to create actual 3D holograms in real space, and they were really rudimentary and small. Like a cube that was like the size of your fingernail, kind of small. And so when this guy says he married a hologram, my first thought is, do holograms actually exist?
I don't know, but the story calls it a virtual hologram.
That's very different. So it's a fake person in a fake environment. So it's double fake.
Yeah, he didn't want to commit to just a regular fake person.
Right.
He wanted the double fake.
That's right.
But apparently
layers of protection around your fakeness.
So Akihiko Kondo, and our listener from Japan, please forgive the Japanese pronunciation. Arigato. But he works at a middle school. This guy, he's 35 years old. He invited 40 of his close friends and relatives to the ceremony.
Wait, were they actually there, or were they virtual friends?
All I know is his parents, his real actual life parents, did not attend.
I imagine.
But according to the company that actually owns this hologram, so this is a very popular character in some online game in Japan. Their statement is, marriage with a character has no legal validity, and this event should be of no concern to Hatsune Miku's millions of fans. Hatsune Miku's the name of the hologram.
She's still on the market, fellas. Don't worry, this wasn't a legit wedding. She is still on the market.
You can virtually marry her as many times as you'd like.
Right.
The company continued saying, we see this as one individual's way of expressing his appreciation for Hatsune Miku, and we respect that.
Respect. Yeah, a lot of respect.
Respect. Fantastic headline number 5. Pennsylvania woman claims she drove on train tracks because GPS told her to go that way. I'm actually surprised we don't read this headline every week, because I know, even in places I know I'm familiar with, I'll still put it in my phone to see like the best way to go, make sure there's not like an accident or something. So I'm always just following wherever my phone tells me to go. Here's my assumption. My assumption is, on Google, like Google Maps, you can do the like pedestrian, like the best way to walk somewhere. My guess is she had like the public transportation and just follow the public. But okay, and that's fine. That's an honest mistake. You follow the public transportation route, which takes you to the train tracks. At some point, though, you realize, hey, I'm not on a road. I'm on train tracks.
Or maybe you don't realize it and you drive for 15 miles.
Yeah, so the police commented saying the female was 100% sober and had no medical conditions affecting her decision making.
That's not a good look, though. I almost wish it was the other way. I wish there was something impairing her decision making at the time.
And there's nothing in the story that tells us how long she was on the road, or on the tracks, but she was on there long enough for someone to notice her, call the police, and the police to find her.
That's way too long.
So, I don't know if you've all seen the episode of The Office where Michael Scott turns into a pond.
That was the first thing I thought of.
Yeah. But when I remember seeing that, thinking, no, like, would someone really do that? But in 2018, people are doing that. So, be safe out there, folks. The phones are working against us. Technology is finally rising up. It's the machine revolution. Don't trust your phones.
I mentioned NBA drama a little bit in my hot take minute, but remember when Kawhi laughed? That was so good.
Thank you.
Did you do that again? That is so good.
Thank you.
I'm like,
Adam, would you put in the real Kawhi laugh just so we can have a comparison?
That's a good idea. Okay. So Anthony's Kawhi laugh? Kawhi laugh. Anthony's laugh? Kawhi laugh. All right, listeners, we'll leave it up to you. If you liked Anthony's laugh better.
Which is the real Kawhi?
Yeah, which is the real Kawhi? What if the answer is neither?
What if I've been Kawhi all along? What if the real Kawhi is inside all of us?
That would be Kawhi the Revelation.
Crazy. The NBA is wacky.
It really is. So wacky, in fact, it's getting so weird now in the NBA that Kawhi Leonard got a technical foul. I mean,
but it wasn't like an ordinary technical foul where the player's like saying some obscene thing or making some grand gesture at a referee. Like, I don't know what was said, but all I saw was Kawhi extend his arms slightly. Like a what?
That's Kawhi yelling and throwing things.
And they teed him up. It was the weakest technical of 2018. I'm sure there's more to come. Kawhi was
more to come to Kawhi.
Yeah.
If you had the over/under,
Kawhi is not done making weak headlines.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. If you had the over/under on Kawhi's technical fouls, like if it was your job in Vegas to set that prop bet, what would you put it at for Kawhi's over/under Kawhi's technical fouls for the season? What would you have put it at?
Probably 1.
I would have put it at 0.5.
Yeah. Okay.
I would have put it at 0.5.
Yeah. So okay, but yeah, that was only the second for me, the second most interesting Kawhi story this week. Popovich, Greg Popovich, his former coach of the San Antonio Spurs, was asked recently about the importance of point guard Patty Mills' leadership, especially in the wake of Manu Ginobili's departure due to retirement, and Tony Parker's signing with the Charlotte Hornets, and then Leonard's trade to Toronto. And he was pretty blunt. He said Kawhi was a great player, but he wasn't a leader or anything. Manu and Patty were the leaders. Kawhi's talent will always be missed, but that leadership wasn't his deal at the time. Now, I'm not going to disagree. Obviously, I wasn't there. He knows who the leaders of the team were more than anyone. But why even say that? Like, what's that has the feel to me of just like being a little bitter about how, like, he obviously wouldn't have said that if Kawhi were still on the team.
All right, well, look who Popovich has played with. He's played with some of what we would call the most professional and the best leaders through example and play and vocally that we've seen in basketball. And he had him on his team. David Robinson, they called him the Admiral. Not because he was like in the military, yeah, but also because that's the way he comported himself, and that's the way they respected him. They respected him like you would respect a Navy admiral, right? And then you have Tim Duncan, who is just like David Robinson 2.0, just with a sweeter off the glass jump shot. But that same type of player who does it right, who plays well, who plays hard, and who once got a technical foul for
laughing on the bench.
on the bench. You remember that?
Yeah.
It's very Kawhi-esque.
Right.
How dare he? But anyway, and then Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, who was, again, the consummate pro and just the hardest worker. You go from that, and then your next superstar player, who might be just as, if not more talented than all of those guys, doesn't say anything.
Yeah.
Ever. So Popovich goes from those type of players to a Kawhi, and that must have been really strange and may have been grating for Popovich to say, you have all this talent, everyone respects you for your skill and your ability to play the game. Take advantage of that and become a leader in other ways too. And I think Kawhi just didn't do that. It's just not him. And
he didn't step up and grab the reins of leadership.
Right. And you don't always need to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I became much more comfortable playing sports, and I realized I wasn't the raw, motivate everyone kind of a guy. I couldn't yell at the group of guys and get people excited about the game or anything like that. I started playing better, actually, and maybe this is a lesson I should take through my entire life, but the more silent I was during games, the better I played. I mean, there were whole baseball games where I wouldn't say a word to anybody. It was glorious, and I played really well. Maybe I should do that in my career.
I think you need to talk a little bit as a teacher. Just a little bit.
That's true. Maybe in meetings though. Maybe I should just not talk in meetings anymore.
Yeah. I'm gonna take that approach at work when I'm on a conference call or something. Anthony, you have anything to add? I'm gonna let my work do the talking. Yeah. We'll see how that goes.
I like that.
All right. Sticking with this wacky NBA season, what's up, Celtics? You get back an all-star in Gordon Hayward. Jason Tatum is in his second year. Jaylen Brown in his third year. Kyrie Irving healthy. And you're 11-10. You have the quote-unquote best young coach in the league in Brad Stevens. I don't know why I did quote-unquote. I don't know.
Is he the best or not?
I think that is a question now, right?
It is now. I think last year everyone was saying he might be the best coach in the league.
Yeah.
With what he did. Did he win Coach of the Year last year?
I don't know if
he
did.
No, the Raptors coach did.
Oh, that's
who
right.
Then got fired.
Dwayne Casey.
Dwayne Casey then got fired. And everyone was saying, no, it should have been Brad Stevens for what he did, taking that group, that team who was missing its two best players to the playoffs, right?
And that's what Brad Stevens does. He takes players who individually are not all-star talent, but collectively make it to the finals or make it to the conference finals. You think of what he did in college with Butler. They got to the national championship twice, right? Featuring Gordon Hayward, right? But with a bunch of players who were not recruited by the biggest schools.
And this is interesting to me because it brings up what would the opposite of Brad Stevens be? The first person I thought of was Phil Jackson.
Phil Jackson, yeah.
The guy who came in and coached superstars.
Pat Riley.
Yeah, those guys came in and they coached superstars and they managed those superstar egos and were able to get good play out of them and good teamwork out of them and won a lot of championships. Brad Stevens seems to be the opposite of that, who when he gets the superstar egos back into this team and into the system, doesn't quite know how to manage them maybe. So it also might just be that this is really the first time we're seeing Kyrie and Gordon Hayward playing together, and now you have this group of guys who aren't getting as many minutes as they were last year, and they have to share these minutes, and so all that production is going to go down. This is something that you kind of have to figure out. So we are just 20 games in or so, so give it some time.
We're a quarter of the way into the season. You're right. It's still early. I think you see that with the Thunder. They started off 0-5. They're now 12-7. So things can change quickly. It's just surprising because the team is largely the same. They're just adding an all-star. Right. And so you would think, if anything, they'd do as well as they did last year, but they're barely above 500. So in the East, I mean, you've really got the Bucks and the Raptors at the top, and then the 76ers are doing all right. Pacers are okay, but then it kind of really drops off after that.
I don't know. Blake Griffin's motivation is pretty high right now. He might go on a tear here.
Interesting. Yeah. So the East is compelling for some reasons. The West is compelling for totally opposite reasons. It's between the 1 seed right now, which is the Los Angeles, and if I were about to say 20 games into the season, the team leading the West is the Los Angeles blank. I think if you polled everyone before the season, it'd be the Lakers. Everyone would be surprised. They gelled so quickly.
Raise your hand out there if you thought the Clippers would ever be in first place this year. No one? No one? I'm so used to this.
Not even the
I'm in
ghost
my
of
element.
Donald Sterling thinks that, and he's not dead.
Why'd you kill poor Donald? I'm not going to say poor Donald Sterling. Why did you kill Donald Sterling? Are you his silly wabbit? His white hand arm man?
I'm very uncomfortable right now.
His silly wabbit? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Those are the recordings? From the
Yeah,
recordings?
yeah. What was that lady's name? Lee Stiviano or whatever?
Yes.
The interview with Barbara Walters. That was one of my favorite moments in interviewing history, like of the world. When she was like, I'm his bunny rabbit, and Barbara Walters goes, yo, what? Yo, bunny rabbit. It's so great. I'm his right hand arm man. It's so great. Yo, what?
So the Clippers are leading the West at 13-6.
The Quippers.
Yeah, but between the 1 and 7 teams, it's only 2 games separating the first place team and the 7th place team. Both LA teams, right? You have the Clippers at 13-6, the Lakers at 11-8, and then a bunch of really good teams in between that can't get any separation. Warriors 15-7, Nuggets 13-7, Grizzlies, Thunder, Blazers, and then the Kings rounding out the top 8 at 10-10. Spurs tied with them.
Yeah, we all had that too. That the Kings would be tied with the Spurs 20 games in.
Yeah, and then
the Suns and the Jazz are at the bottom, which surprises me because the Jazz basically have the same team that should have beat the Rockets last year, and they're 14th in the West.
Well, but here's the thing: there's only one very bad team in the West.
Suns.
The Suns. They're 4-15. Okay, there's like 6 or 7 bad teams in the East. Every other team, teams 1 through 14 in the West, are right around or just above 500. The talent is so good in the West that no one can get separation, right? So you got the Jazz at 9-12, the Clippers at 13-6, the Rockets at 9-10, the Timberwolves at 10-11. Surprisingly, the Mavs 9. It's almost so much talent that no one seems very good. It's that weird kind of paradox, right?
Okay, so because they're all playing each other all the time and all the teams are so close, none of the teams look like they're that good of a team because all those records are going to stay right about where they are. It's kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, there's a high degree of parity because these teams are loaded, right? And the teams that aren't loaded, like the Clippers, are like getting maximum effort and maximum play from their players. And so I don't know if this can hold for an entire season. We're a quarter of the way in. Super interesting what's happening so far. Let's check back in like in January and see if any of these teams have separated themselves. Steph Curry's out, so once he gets back, do the Warriors go on a big run?
And I think, even though they've won the last 3, I think Steph Curry being out has shown how important he is to that offense.
Yeah.
Things get really bogged down when he's not in there. Another thing I wanted to talk about, Jimmy Butler hitting another game winner in a very similar fashion is incredible. I mean, he seems like he is just so happy.
Loving
so
life.
He's just thrilled to be there. What happens now to Marquel Fultz, who's not with the team, who's getting reevaluated in a really weird situation? It's like his agent and his attorneys are getting things moving when it comes to like being reevaluated medically and stuff like that. It's just all a really weird situation. It seems like he's going to be leaving Philadelphia, which I think makes sense when you have Jimmy Butler there.
Yeah, it's almost reminiscent of what happened with Kawhi last year, except that you're not talking about a 2-time defensive player of the year and finals MVP.
Perennial all-star, yeah.
Right? You're talking about Marquel Fultz, who to this point has not lived up to the hype that he came with coming out of college. I hate to throw around the word bust because...
I don't. I think he's a bust.
At this point in time, yes.
I see what you're saying. Like, he could mature and grow into a better player. He could end up being a great NBA player. But as of right now, the Sixers are not getting their investment back at all.
Not even close. Even someone like Lonzo Ball, who had a lot of hype, and whose shot is still not developed to where you would want it to be.
Just like I said.
He's still a very effective NBA player. And when he's on the court, his team does really well. He does all the other things that you would want a basketball player to do.
What's his plus minus?
I could not tell you off the top of my head. But getting back to Fultz, just looking at number 1 draft picks, you see this a lot where number 1 draft picks end up being busts, right? It's not super uncommon. in the NBA or NFL or really any professional sports league. You're guessing based on what they've done in college or high school, and it's not an exact science. But it tends to be more exact with guards. If you look at the number one picks over the last 35 plus years, the last guard drafted number one to not make an all-star team was John Lucas, drafted in 1976 by the Houston Rockets. I don't know anything about John Lucas, and that's probably because he never made an all-star team. He didn't make an impact in the NBA. I don't know if he was hurt. I don't know what happened to him.
He's the coach at Georgetown now, I think.
Is that right?
I think so.
Okay. So the last time, so looking at the NBA draft, all number one picks going back to 1976, only one who was a guard drafted overall number one not make the all-star team. John Lucas, 1976. In that same time frame, you've had 11 forwards and centers drafted number one who have not made an all-star team. And so it's much more common for these big men to get drafted on athleticism, potential. They're not as developed because the center position can often take a little bit more time to learn because these players are not fully grown into their bodies yet, or they were clumsy in high school because they grew too fast. But you see potential there, and so you take a little bit more risk drafting a big man. But if it pays off, like with a Shaq or David Robinson, Tim Duncan, it really pays off.
And I think of it this way: you're not going to take a guard unless you know for sure it's a slam dunk.
Yeah.
Pun intended. But unless you have a slam dunk guard, you're not going to pick him, right? And I think that's where it comes from.
Yeah, and I think if you polled, all the GMs last year, all 30 GMs, at least 28 of them had Marquel Fultz. I think maybe the Lakers still had Lonzo Ball as their number one, and I think the Celtics always had Tatum as their number one, which is why they were comfortable trading the number one pick and going down to 3 because they thought they could still get Tatum. And so, but every other team I think would have happily taken Marquel Fultz, which makes this so bizarre, so perplexing. Usually when you see that bust, it's like there's a debate. Is it Greg Oden? Is it Kevin Durant? Let's go for the big man, right? But yeah, so this is just, I wouldn't say uncharted territory because it's happened before, but it hasn't happened in a long time where you draft a guard number one and they're just a bust.
So, you mentioned that we played some ping pong over Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember I had some good rallies. I had some good runs.
Okay.
But when it came right down to it, I still haven't beat you a game yet.
Yeah. How does that make you feel?
I don't know. But after today's show, I think we should play a little bit, and I think I have a little bit of an advantage because just like the dart player, I got something brewing, and I think it's really going to give me an advantage. And we're going to be in an enclosed area. It's in the garage, right? So I'm going to make sure none of the windows are open, none of the doors are open, and I'm going to hotbox you. And then I'm going to beat you. But I will say this. I am an honorable man. When I fart, I will tell you. I have my honor to consider.
I'm not looking forward to this.
Let's go get a W. Let's go get a ping pong W.